Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the UES horizon, watching the distant stars through a layer of microfractures in the reinforced glass. The old ship's maintenance budget didn't cover cosmetic repairs anymore. Not that she minded. Every crack and dent told a story, and the horizon had plenty of those after 30 years of service. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up something unusual in the Procyon sector. Lieutenant James Rodriguez called from his station. The young officer had been assigned to the horizon as punishment for some minor infraction at the academy. Like most of her crew, he'd initially seen the posting as a career death sentence. "Define unusual, Lieutenant," Chen replied, already moving to his station. The Horizon's sensor array might be considered primitive by modern standards, but it had a particular quirk that had caught her attention months ago. It could detect patterns that newer systems filtered out as background noise. Rodriguez's fingers danced across his console, bringing up a complex wave pattern. "It's like quantum interference, but structured. I've never seen anything like it. The new quantum noise reduction filters would probably clean this right out, but our old system..." He trailed off, embarrassed by their outdated technology. Chen leaned closer, studying the pattern. After 20 years in space, she'd learned to trust her instincts. "Send this to Dr. Patel in theoretical physics. Priority channel." The next 12 hours passed in tense silence. The Horizon continued its patrol route through the outer colonies, the only task command trusted to ships of the Unity class anymore. Chen spent the time reviewing everything they knew about quantum signal propagation, a field that had been largely abandoned when faster-than-light communication became standardized. Dr. Patel's response arrived just as Chen was about to end her shift. The message was brief but chilling. "These patterns match theoretical models for quantum-scale cloaking technology. If something's generating these signals, it's big, and it's trying very hard not to be seen." Chen immediately called a senior staff meeting. Her small command crew gathered in the briefing room. Rodriguez from Sensors, Chief Engineer Maya Torres, Tactical Officer Victor Kovalev, and First Officer Commander David Park. They were a mix of veterans who couldn't compete for positions on newer ships and young officers marking time until better assignments came along. "Look at these readings," Chen began, projecting the sensor data. "Modern ships would never detect this. Their filters are too good, designed to give nice, clean data. But our old quantum sensors, they're sensitive to things the new ones ignore." Torres leaned forward, her cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the display. "Those patterns, they're like echoes in quantum foam. Something's disturbing space-time, but trying to smooth out the ripples, like a shark trying to swim without making waves." "Exactly," Chen nodded. "And whatever's causing this is heading toward the Garnet colony, home to 2 million civilians who'd never see it coming." "Command won't believe us," Park said quietly. "We're the obsolete patrol ship that gets lost colonies and backwater routes. They'll say our sensors are malfunctioning. Then we don't tell them." "Not yet." Chen stood, drawing herself to her full height. "Plot a course to intercept those signatures. We need proof, and we need to understand what we're dealing with." "Captain," Kovalev spoke up, his voice grave. "If this is what we think it is, some kind of cloaked vessel, we're not exactly equipped for combat. The Horizon's weapons are 3 generations out of date." Chen smiled, but there was steel in her eyes. "Sometimes old technology has advantages we've forgotten about. Our quantum core may be inefficient by modern standards, but it operates on the same principles that whatever's out there is trying to hide from. We're not obsolete, we're just specialized." The crew exchanged glances. They'd served together long enough to know when their captain had something in mind. Chen had a reputation for understanding the Horizon systems at a deeper level than any other Unity-class commander. "Torres, I want you to start modifying our sensor array. If we can detect these quantum disturbances, maybe we can learn to track them more precisely. Rodriguez, coordinate with her. Your experience with modern systems might help us understand what the new ships are missing. Park, draft a contingency plan for evacuating Garnet if we're right about this." Kovalev, review everything we have on quantum-based weapons technology from the Unity-class development period. As her crew dispersed to their tasks, Chen returned to the viewport. Somewhere out there, something was moving through human space, confident that humanity's advanced technology would never detect its presence. But sometimes, progress meant leaving behind useful tools, forgetting old lessons in the rush toward efficiency and automation. The horizon might be old, but age brought wisdom, and humanity's cast-offs might just prove to be its salvation. Let's show them what obsolete can do, Chen whispered to her ship, and felt the familiar vibration of its quantum core pulse in response, like a sleeping giant slowly waking up. The horizon dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Garnet system, its old engines cooling with a distinctive purple glow that modern ships had engineered away. In the 2 days since detecting the quantum disturbances, Chen's crew had worked tirelessly to modify their sensor systems. Multiple signatures detected, Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with tension. Same quantum interference patterns, but stronger now. Whatever's out there, it's big. Chief Engineer Torres stood behind him, her cybernetic eye processing the data streams. The pattern matches a fleet in formation. I count at least 15 distinct sources. Chen studied the tactical display. The quantum disturbances were moving toward Garnet's main colony, still invisible to conventional sensors. She had already positioned the horizon between the potential threat and the colony, though she knew her single aging ship couldn't hope to stop a fleet. New contact. Kovalev suddenly called out. Something just dropped out of FTL. It's the UES Dauntless. Chen's heart sank. The Dauntless was one of the newest ships in the fleet, a stellar-class destroyer equipped with every advanced system the Unity Defense Force could devise. And its captain, Marcus Walsh, was notorious for his disdain of obsolete vessels like the Horizon. "They're hailing us," Rodriguez reported. Walsh's hologram appeared on the bridge, his expression already set in a disapproving frown. "Captain Chen, your vessel is well outside its assigned patrol route. Explain yourself." "Captain Walsh," Chen replied carefully. "We've detected unusual quantum signatures approaching Garnet Colony. We believe—" "I've reviewed your sensor data," Walsh interrupted. "It's clearly a malfunction. Your ship's systems are decades out of date. Return to your patrol route immediately." Chen stood her ground. "Sir, with respect, these signatures match theoretical models for quantum-scale cloaking technology. Dr. Patil at the Physics Institute has confirmed." "Enough." Walsh's voice cracked like a whip. "Your obsolete sensors are generating ghost readings. The Dauntless has the most advanced detection systems in the fleet, and we see nothing. Return to your patrol route, or I'll have you relieved of command." The transmission cut off abruptly. Chen turned to her crew, seeing the familiar mix of frustration and resignation on their faces. They were used to being dismissed. "He's wrong," Torres said quietly, still studying the sensor data. "These patterns, they're becoming more organized. Whatever's out there is preparing for something." Before Chen could respond, the quantum disturbances suddenly shifted. The mysterious signatures were accelerating, moving into an attack formation that Chen recognized from historical archives. Multiple spatial distortions forming. Rodriguez shouted. There, the space around them seemed to tear open. Massive ships materialized from nowhere, their hulls covered in geometric patterns that seemed to bend light around them. They were unlike anything in human records, organic curves blended with crystalline structures, creating forms that hurt the eyes to look at. On the Dauntless, every advanced sensor would have been blinded by the quantum interference from the decloaking ships, but the Horizon's old systems, designed to work with quantum noise rather than filter it out, gave Chen's crew a perfect view of the threat. "Captain," Park's voice was steady despite the situation. "The Dauntless is directly in their line of fire. Their shields aren't even up." Chen didn't hesitate. "Full power to engines. Get us between those ships and the Dauntless." Kovalev, start cycling our shield frequencies through the pattern we detected in their quantum signatures. Torres, I need everything you can give me from the core. The Horizon's engines flared brilliant purple as the old ship pushed itself to maximum acceleration. They wouldn't reach the Dauntless before the alien ships fired, but Chen had noticed something in their quantum patterns, something that gave her an idea. Torres, remember how our quantum core generates those harmonic oscillations that the maintenance crews could never fix? The engineer's organic eye widened as she understood. The same frequency as their cloaking systems. Captain, if we overload the core. Do it. Torres ran to the engineering station, her fingers flying over the controls. The Horizon's quantum core had always produced strange resonance patterns that modern ships had eliminated through better shielding. But now Chen was betting their lives that those inefficiencies might save them all. The alien ships fired. Beams of coherent energy, twisted through quantum states that should have been impossible, lanced out toward the Dauntless, but they had to pass the Horizon first. Core overload in 3, 2, 1. Torres called out. Chen felt the deck vibrating beneath her feet as the quantum core's harmonics reached critical levels. The alien beams struck and shattered, their quantum-shifted energy disrupted by the Horizon's resonance field. The Dauntless is moving, Rodriguez reported. They're finally raising shields. But Chen was focused on something else. The alien ship's geometric patterns were fluctuating, their quantum cloaking systems disrupted by the same harmonics that had saved the Dauntless. For the first time, they were fully visible to conventional sensors. Send targeting data to the Dauntless, Chen ordered. Their weapons can hit them now. They just needed our old quantum core to show them where to shoot. As the Dauntless opened fire on the now visible alien ships, Chen allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes, the flaws in old systems weren't flaws at all. They were features that had been forgotten. And sometimes it took an obsolete ship and a crew of cast-offs to remember what modern technology had forgotten. The battle for Garnet Colony was just beginning, but humanity had already learned its first vital lesson. Progress wasn't always about moving forward. Sometimes you had to remember where you came from to see the way ahead. The aftermath of the first encounter with the alien fleet left the Garnet system in chaos. The UES Horizon's engineering bay had become a hive of activity as Chief Torres and her team worked to understand what had happened during the quantum core overload. The harmonics weren't just disrupting their weapons, Torres explained, projecting a hologram of the core's energy patterns. They were interfering with their entire technological approach. These aliens, they're not just advanced. They're operating on principles we abandoned decades ago. Captain Chen studied the data scrolling across her tablet. The alien ships, now identified as belonging to a species calling themselves the Nexus Coalition, had retreated after their cloaking systems were compromised. But long-range sensors showed them regrouping at the edge of human space. They're adapting, Commander Park noted, pointing to new sensor readings. Their quantum signatures are already shifting to different frequencies. Then we'll adapt faster, Chen replied. She turned to Torres. You said we abandoned these principles. Why? The engineer's cybernetic eye whirred as she pulled up historical data. Quantum manipulation was too unpredictable, too power-hungry. Modern ships use quantum filters to eliminate the noise and focus on clean, efficient energy channels. But the Horizon's old core, she smiled. It's like an untuned radio that can pick up frequencies no one else is listening to anymore. Lieutenant Rodriguez spoke up from his station. Captain Walsh is demanding another meeting. The Dauntless and 3 other Stellar-class ships have arrived in system. Chen nodded. Even after the Horizon had saved his ship, Walsh had been reluctant to acknowledge the value of their outdated systems, but now he couldn't ignore them entirely. The meeting took place in the Horizon's briefing room. Walsh and 3 other modern ship captains sat stiffly in their pressed uniforms, trying not to touch the worn seats. Your intervention was appreciated, Walsh began, clearly struggling with the words. But the fleet can handle things from here. We've analyzed their attack patterns and developed countermeasures. Those countermeasures won't work, Chen said firmly. She nodded to Torres, who displayed the latest sensor data. The Nexus Coalition isn't just technologically advanced. They're fundamentally different in their approach. They don't filter quantum noise. They use it. Every photon, every particle interaction is part of their tactical network. That's impossible, one of the other captains scoffed. The energy requirements alone would be massive. Torres finished. Unless you found a way to harness quantum foam itself, which is exactly what our core was originally designed to do, before the program was abandoned for more efficient systems. Chen stood, commanding attention. The Unity-class ships weren't failures. They were the first steps toward understanding something we weren't ready for. But the Nexus Coalition, they took that understanding to its logical conclusion. Even if you're right, Walsh said, one old ship can't make a difference against their entire fleet. No, Chen agreed. But there are 15 other Unity-class ships scattered across the outer colonies, ships that everyone wrote off as obsolete. Together, we might have a chance. The meeting continued for hours, with Torres and Rodriguez presenting evidence that the modern fleet's commanders couldn't ignore. The Nexus Coalition's technology wasn't just advanced, it was alien in the truest sense, operating on principles that humanity had glimpsed and then turned away from. After the other captains left, Chen found herself alone on the bridge, watching the distant stars. The horizon hummed around her, its quantum core pulsing with possibilities that had been forgotten but never truly lost. Status report. She called out to the night shift crew. The quantum harmonics are holding steady, Ensign Zhang replied from engineering. Chief Torres modifications are working better than expected. We're actually seeing increased efficiency in all systems. Chen smiled. Of course they were. The horizon wasn't fighting its own nature anymore. It was embracing what it had always been meant to be. A priority message flashed on her screen. Fleet Command had finally responded to her report about the Nexus Coalition. Her smile widened as she read the orders. She was to gather the remaining Unity-class ships and their crews, not for decommissioning as had been planned, but for a mission that might determine the fate of humanity. Plot a course to the Artemis Naval Yard, she ordered. We're going to remind some old ships what they were built for. As the horizon prepared to jump, Chen felt a familiar vibration through the deck plates. But it wasn't the rattling of worn systems, it was the hum of potential finally being realized. The ship that everyone had dismissed as obsolete was about to become the blueprint for humanity's survival. And somewhere out in the darkness, the Nexus Coalition was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in abandoning its past, but in remembering the wisdom hidden in its forgotten choices. The Artemis Naval Yard hadn't seen this much activity in years. 15 Unity-class ships, their hulls bearing the scars of decades of service, gathered in formation around the horizon. Each vessel had responded to Chen's call, brought back from the forgotten corners of human space by captains who understood what it meant to be underestimated. Unity Fleet, this is Captain Chen. She broadcast to the assembled ships. You've all seen the data on the Nexus Coalition. You know what we're up against. But more importantly, you know what these ships can do. The responses came quickly, not just from the captains, but from their crews. Engineers who had spent years keeping old systems running shared modifications and improvements. Sensor operators who had learned to read quantum harmonics like music compared notes on the alien signatures. These weren't just crews anymore. They were pioneers rediscovering lost knowledge. Commander Park entered the bridge with a troubled expression. Captain Walsh is here, with admirals. Chen straightened her uniform. She had expected this. The gathering of the Unity fleet hadn't gone unnoticed by command, and not everyone was happy about it. Admiral Harrison arrived with an entourage of staff officers and modern ship captains. His face was set in stern lines as he surveyed the horizon's worn bridge. Captain Chen, he began without preamble, you've exceeded your authority. These ships were scheduled for decommissioning. They're relics, dangerous ones at that. The quantum cores alone are a hazard. "With respect, Admiral," Chen replied, "those hazardous cores are exactly what we need. The Nexus Coalition's entire technological base operates on principles we abandoned. But these ships remember." "Remember," Harrison's voice dripped with skepticism. "They're machines, Captain, not history teachers." Torres stepped forward, her cybernetic eye glowing as she projected data into the air. "Look at these readings, Admiral. The Unity-class quantum cores don't just generate power, they interact with space-time in ways we chose to ignore, ways that the Nexus Coalition has mastered. And in the process," Chen added, "they've become dependent on those interactions. Their cloaking, their weapons, their very method of FTL travel. It all relies on manipulating quantum foam, just like these ships were designed to do." Walsh shifted uncomfortably. The Horizon's intervention at Garnet was fortunate, but one lucky strike doesn't justify risking. He was interrupted by a priority alert. Rodriguez's hands flew across his console. Multiple quantum signatures detected. Massive Coalition fleet incoming. They're not even trying to hide anymore. The tactical display lit up with contact markers. Dozens of alien ships were appearing at the edge of the system, their geometric patterns blazing with energy that twisted through quantum states. "All ships, battle stations," Harrison ordered automatically. But Chen could see the fear in his eyes. The Coalition fleet was larger than anything they'd faced before, and the modern ship's weapons would be useless against their quantum-shifted shields. "Admiral," Chen said quietly, "let us show you what these relics can do. The Unity fleet isn't obsolete. We're specialized. And right now, we're exactly what humanity needs." Harrison looked at the tactical display, then at the gathered Unity-class ships waiting outside. Decades of military doctrine warred with the evidence before him. "You have 1 hour," he finally said. "Show me your plan." Chen didn't waste time. She brought up the tactical simulations her crews had been developing. "The Coalition's quantum technology is more advanced than ours, but it's also more rigid. They've optimized their systems, stripped away everything they saw as inefficient. But those inefficiencies," she smiled, "those were safety margins. The plan was audacious. The Unity fleet would use their quantum cores in concert, creating harmonic patterns that would cascade through space-time itself. The Coalition's optimized systems wouldn't be able to adapt fast enough. It's like hitting a perfect crystal with just the right frequency," Torres explained. "The more perfect the structure, the more catastrophic the resonance failure." "And if you're wrong?" Walsh asked. "Then we die knowing we tried," Chen replied. "But if we're right, we prove that sometimes the old ways aren't just memories. They're foundations we forgot we built on." As the hour wound down, Chen watched her crew prepare for battle. Rodriguez fine-tuning sensor arrays that could see what modern systems missed. Torres coaxing impossible power levels from the quantum core. Kovalev plotting firing solutions that bent probability itself. They weren't just fighting for survival now. They were fighting to prove that progress wasn't a straight line. It was a web of possibilities, and sometimes the path forward led through the past. The Coalition fleet drew closer, their ships moving with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. But they had never faced ships like these, crews like these. They had never faced humans who understood that wisdom wasn't always about embracing the new. Sometimes it was about remembering what had been forgotten. "Unity fleet," Chen broadcast, "prepare for synchronized quantum core activation. Let's show them what obsolete can do." The old ships moved into formation, their purple engine glows merging into a constellation of defiance. They weren't relics anymore. They were humanity's memory, awakening just when it was needed most. And as the Coalition fleet entered weapons range, that memory was about to become their nightmare. The void between Artemis Naval Yard and the approaching Nexus Coalition fleet rippled with quantum distortions. 16 Unity-class ships faced down an armada of over 50 alien vessels, their ancient cores humming in synchronization. Coalition ships entering final attack range, Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the tension. Their quantum signatures are. They're beautiful, Captain. Like a perfect crystal lattice. That perfection is their weakness, Chen replied. She opened a channel to the Unity fleet. All ships begin quantum harmonic sequence. Follow the horizon's lead. Torrid stood at her engineering station, her organic and cybernetic eyes both fixed on the core readings. Quantum resonance building. The modifications are holding. The Coalition fleet's first volley lit up space with weapons that twisted through quantum states, but this time the Unity fleet was ready. Their synchronized cores pulsed, creating overlapping fields of quantum interference that caught the alien energy weapons and scattered them into harmless light. They're adapting, Park warned, shifting their attack frequencies. Let them, Chen said with a grim smile. Every adaptation locks them further into their rigid patterns. Taurus. Quantum resonance at 60% and climbing. The other ships are matching our harmonics perfectly. On the tactical display, Chen watched the Coalition ships begin their standard attack pattern, the same perfectly optimized formations that had devastated modern human fleets. But against the Unity ships' quantum interference, their precision worked against them. All Unity ships, execute pattern Omega, Chen ordered. The old ships moved with practiced coordination, their seemingly random movements creating complex quantum wave patterns. Like a stone thrown into still water, their resonance began to spread. Coalition ships showing signs of shield instability, Kovalev reported. Their quantum fields are trying to compensate, but they can't. Torres finished. They've optimized their systems so much that they don't have the flexibility to handle this kind of interference. They're fighting their own perfection. The first Coalition ship's shields failed catastrophically, its quantum fields collapsing in a cascade of energy. Then another and another. Their attempts to adapt only made things worse, each adjustment bringing them closer to the resonant frequency that the Unity fleet was generating. Admiral Harrison's voice came over the command channel, tight with disbelief. Captain Chen, the modern fleet's sensors are picking up quantum fluctuations unlike anything we've ever seen. What exactly are your ships doing? We're reminding the universe of something it forgot, Chen replied. That sometimes the flaws in a system are what make it strong. The spaces between perfection where adaptation lives. The Coalition fleet's rigid formation began to break apart as more ships lost their quantum field coherence. Their perfect crystalline technology, refined over centuries to eliminate every inefficiency, couldn't handle the chaotic resonance patterns of humanity's forgotten prototypes. They're retreating, Rodriguez announced. No, they're trying to retreat. Their quantum drives are malfunctioning. The resonance is affecting their FTL systems. Chen opened a channel to the Coalition flagship. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Unity Defense Fleet. Your technology is impressive, but it's built on principles you've taken too far. Surrender now, while your ships can still function. The response came in the form of a desperate attack run by the Coalition flagship. Its weapons blazed with power, but the energy dissipated harmlessly against the Unity fleet's quantum interference fields. Quantum resonance at maximum, Torres called out. Core harmonics are synchronizing across all 16 ships. Now, Chen ordered, full power to the resonance field. The Unity fleet's quantum cores pulsed as one, releasing a wave of quantum interference that rippled through spacetime itself. The Coalition ships, their perfect systems unable to adapt to such fundamental chaos, began to shut down one by one. In less than an hour, it was over. The mighty Coalition fleet hung powerless in space, their quantum technology paralyzed by the very principles they had refined to perfection. The Unity fleet, those supposedly obsolete ships that everyone had written off, had just saved humanity. Admiral Harrison's hologram appeared on the bridge. Captain Chen, I owe you an apology. We all do. These ships, their technology, we were wrong to dismiss them. No, Admiral, Chen replied, looking around at her crew. At Torres's proud smile, Rodriguez's quiet confidence, Park's satisfied nod. We weren't wrong to move forward. We were just wrong to forget where we came from. Every step forward, humanity takes stands on the foundation of what came before. As recovery ships moved to secure the disabled coalition vessels, Shen walked to the horizon's viewport. The old ship's quantum core pulsed with steady power, no longer fighting its own nature but embracing it. "Send word to Fleet Command," she ordered. "Tell them it's time to dust off the old quantum physics textbooks. We have a lot to relearn." The Unity fleet gathered in formation around the naval yard. Their purple engine glows a testament to humanity's greatest strength, not the ability to perfect technology, but the wisdom to remember that imperfection often held its own kind of perfection. And in the years that followed, as humanity began to merge the old quantum principles with modern technology, people would remember the lesson of the Unity fleet. Progress wasn't about abandoning the past. It was about building on it, understanding it, and sometimes returning to it to find the wisdom hidden in its forgotten choices. The ships that everyone had ignored had become humanity's salvation, proving once and for all that nothing was truly obsolete. It was just waiting for its moment to remind the universe of its worth.